Both on the piece. March. Take gentlemen. What we're going to do for you right now is we're going to demonstrate the firing of an 1861 10-pounder Parrot rifle. The drill that we used today was the drill that was used during the Civil War. Regardless of the type of cannon that you would have served, you'd have used this similar drill. Typically, a gun crew was 8 men plus a gunner. We need 4 men up on the gun. The other 4 men were back at the limber. The limber was a 2-wheeled horse-drawn cart, 6 horses that carried your ammunition chest, about 50 rounds. Since we're not going to be firing a live projectile today and only putting in gunpowder, we don't need the limber and the men there. So we'll get by with our gun crew up here. I'm going to be doing the job of the men at the limber. I'm going to be doing the job of the gunner, and I'm also going to be doing the job of the sergeant as chief of peace. But each one of these people has a numbered position. Everybody is trained to do everybody else's position, so this is how they happen to fall in today. But each one man has specific equipment and specific duties, and we'll start out on the right front with number 1. Number 1's equipment is the ram sponge. On one end is the sponge used for cleaning the bore. On the other end is the wooden ram used to push the powder and the projectile to the rear of the tube. On the left front is number 2. Number 2 has what looks like a large corkscrew. It's called the worm. During the Civil War, the gunpowder was brought forward in 1-pound cloth bags. During the firing, not all of that cloth bag would burn. His job with that worm, extract the unburned portion of the powder sack. The worst thing that could happen to a gun crew would be to have embers smoldering at the back of the tube and push a fresh charge of gunpowder on top of it. It would go off immediately. That would be a bad thing. Number 3 on the right rear has 2 pieces of equipment. He has a vent prick. It's a brass prick. There's a vent hole at the back of the tube. We want to prick the hole in the sack of gunpowder to expose the gunpowder. On his left thumb, he's wearing what's called a thumb stall, a leather patch. He's going to seal the breech. What we're going to try to do is by cutting off the flow of air through that hole at the back of the tube, we're going to try to create a vacuum inside that tube. We know that in order for fire to burn, it needs oxygen. We're going to try to cut off the flow of oxygen. Number 4 on the left rear, he has a box of friction primers around his waist, and he has the lanyards. The friction primer is a small brass tube. It's hollow. It's filled with fulminated mercury. It has a wire that's coiled and goes through it. The wire is twisted inside. The composition inside is much like that of a farmer's match. When you apply 6 pounds of pressure to pull the wire out, it drags the wire through, ignites the fulminated mercury, sends the flame straight down into a sack of open gunpowder to ignite the charge. Prior to the invention of the friction primer, at this point in time, once the charge was exposed, the number 4 would have to come forward with a flask of fine powder, what we would call something like triple F. Pour powder down the vent hole and a little pile of powder on top of it, and then step back with a lighted torch or a lint stock, a stick with a lighted fuse on it, and touch it off. But on a windy day or on a day when it was raining, it was impossible to keep your powder dry. With the invention of the friction primer, rain or shine, we get results. The drill goes something like this. There's 6 guns in a battery, a lieutenant commanding each section, a captain in charge. They'll pick a target. In this case, I've been told there's a hidden battery out there. Counter battery fire. They'll give me an estimate to the range. 2,000 yards, I'll use bolt. Commence firing with detail, without cartridge. Load. That means I'm going to give them all the commands. Stop vent. Worm. Wet sponge. Worm. The final phase that we may have dislodged some debris in the back of the tube. He's going to check for any debris. Now he's going to set his implement down and turn around, ready to receive the charge. Number 1 goes in. This time when he comes out with his sponge, he'll turn it around and he'll tap the end of the barrel. That's the visual signal that the bore is clean, ready for the ammunition to come forward. Round forward. Number 5 walks the round forward. Number 2 takes the charge and projectile, puts it in the tube. The command is insert charge. The powder and the projectile are inserted at the end. Then the command is for number 1, ram charge. Taking great care, he pushes the powder and the projectile all the way to the rear. At this time the gun is loaded. The gunner calls sight the piece and goes forward with the sight. Number 4 automatically goes to the trail. With my left hand I can control the elevating screw. With my right hand I can move the trail if I need it. I just tap which direction I need it moved. The piece is sighted, trim and prime. Number 3 steps forward, pokes a hole in a sack of gunpowder. Number 4 then attaches the lanyard. We didn't put any powder in this time, so there won't be an explosion. Nods number 3 off. Ready. 1, 2, and 3. Take a step to the rear. Cover the ear closest to the bore. Look to the bore. Number 4 only looks to the gunner. Fire. 6 pounds of pressure ignites the gun. The charge goes off.